Hi, I'm Elle, and this is Brian. And for our debate, we decided to do the topic of representation and stereotyping in media. Should media creators be required to prioritize diverse representation, even if it means deviating from authentic storytelling? And if you see us glancing to the side at any point, it's because we're just looking at our notes.
Before we get into the debate, we're gonna just do a quick discussion answering the discussion questions that were provided for us.
For the topic, I decided to go against, but honestly, I really do see both sides, and I do think it depends a lot on just like the genre that the media creators are like choosing for it.
I would definitely have to agree with that. Initially, I didn't have like a strong yes or no side. I was just thinking it's very like I feel like it definitely I agree with what you said about how it depends. It's like the genre, the audience, like what the purpose of that film or TV that they're creating. Like it really depends on the situation.
Also, when they're making a movie or a TV show, it's never like inherent right away of whether or not it's going to be bad or good when they put diversity into it. Like it really is just a mixed bag. And there's so many different examples of that, which we'll probably talk about. But
And then some of the different ethical principles that are at stake are kind of the concept of diverse representation in general and just how whether or not it can benefit the audience as a whole. And if it does benefit anyone, it would definitely be benefiting those who feel seen by those diverse representations and just kind of minorities that are watching the movie.
my really biggest point for it is just that it's not extremely authentic when you put forced diversity into it. But at the end of the day, if it's benefiting the young kids who are watching it, then I don't think it really matters. And if the audience likes it, that's what matters more too. The money thing is really like that's something that's like pushed to the side. That doesn't matter that much to me.
Right. And my side is I'm on the yes side of this ethical dilemma and she's on the no, but we're still in the discussion right now. And just considering what I would kind of be thinking if I was on her side instead, I would kind of think like that if they're kind of forcing this diversity onto their film, then it might just be more of a checklist and it might not be exactly the perfect representation of that minority. And it's just kind of like stereotyped portrayals. But then on the other side of things, if it goes with the no side and if they don't limit that diversity in their films, then it might it might change what kind of art they're trying to put out there, and it wouldn't really line up with historical accuracy and stuff like that. So I definitely see where the other side's coming from. Those are just kind of the things that I consider if I were debating for that side.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the debate. I can go first on my
Okay.
side. So, I believe that media creators should not be required to prioritize diverse representation, and I do believe that it takes away from authentic storytelling. All art is a bit built on like a creative freedom and the choices that you make that go into your story. And if that is taken away, then it honestly like takes away the meaning of the art as a whole. And I don't think it should be an obligation of any kind. It should just be a choice. If you think that the diversity like further moves along the story, then that's when you should use it.
I hear what you're saying about representation not having to be like an obligation, but I would have to disagree and say that it's not really an optional thing. I think it's really necessary to have these diverse representations because otherwise these marginalized groups, these underrepresented groups are going to just remain invisible because even if we're recreating historical pieces of art or historical films, if you don't change up and add that diversity, we're just going to keep on repeating the same patterns and just have no diversity in our films whatsoever.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. Like the material could start becoming stale. So, for my second point, while promoting inclusion in media is definitely important, it also has to be balanced with the freedom of expression. And forcing creators to include certain types of characters, it just will limit their creative freedom. And I really can't stress that enough. And it just makes their work like feel less genuine. While I do think diversity is important, if it is forced, I feel like you can tell when watching a movie or show that it is forced and not genuine, and nobody wants that. And also, it can end up prioritizing like social expectations over the true show or movie's actual message, and nobody would like that.
I see what you're saying about how it just doesn't let the art feel like realistic and exactly like how it was meant to be created. I do think that it's still very important to have this diversity in like current films and productions because it's so accurate to like how our world is now. Like I feel
That
like
is true,
we've become so much more diverse as like a world in general.
especially American movies.
Right. And we're so much more accepting of like than more than we were back then. So I think that like the art that we produce now should be representative of how accepting and how diverse and how open we are
Okay. All right, for my last point, what I think the possible consequences that could come from the forced representation is that these stories start to become a bit more formulaic or forced, and audiences could perceive these efforts as performative rather than genuine, which I cannot stress enough is something that we do not want, and it ends up undermining both artistic and social goals. For example, in 2023, there was like huge talk over The Little Mermaid, Ariel, the main character, being black. And although that movie did do pretty well, I think it does show the bad spots in it with its 67% Rotten Tomatoes score. That was just one point I wanted to bring up.
now. To directly counter that, I know that the 67% score isn't perfect for a movie, but that was the critics official score of it,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, the audience review of it was a 93%. So I think the more important thing to think about and to focus on is how audiences are perceiving these films and how it's impacting the audience instead of just kind of like critic thoughts on it. And I think the audience is why we create movies, and we should be using films to kind of teach the audience more empathy and more accepting natures, and that's why we should include more diverse
Okay, I do agree with that because what matters more, the audience or the critics? Obviously, the audience is going to be consuming and buying tickets to the movie and everything. I think that concludes it. So
representation. Yes.
thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching.